guest this evening reflects on that very thing. The phone lines will be open here shortly for any questions, comments, or concerns. But we would like to introduce to you a woman for the last 30 years that has worked with Human Trafficking Act and is the woman who created the Sex Workers 12-Step program. Now, in regards to Mr. Margold's adult stars are not sex workers, the section of this program is devoted for those individuals in the sex working industry and not the adult film industry to itself. We would like to welcome Ms. Jody Williams to Union Politics.
How people are manipulating you in ways that you don't even realize. I just knew that I kept getting fired for no reason. I was doing a really good job at whatever restaurant I was at, and I kept getting fired. And I found out later that these men were actually following me, finding out where I was working, and going to the owner of the restaurant and threatening to burn it down if I wasn't fired.
No way.
Absolutely. And I went back to some of the owners and verified, did this really happen? Did they really do this? And they threatened to burn down my club or, restaurant. And the point was to try to corner me financially, literally trying to get me financially desperate. And so, I got financially desperate. And, didn't ease me into the business of, we'll just start you answering the phones. And, just totally ease me into this business because what I walked into was not what you would think of with prostitution. I literally walked into an industry. These people had escorts, but they had in-call service. They had, all kinds of selling. They were involved in the production of pornography. They, just anything you could possibly think of. And I literally even opened the very first phone sex line in California. I mean, it was very much of an industry. It had nothing to do with sex, unlike what people think. It was a business. It was about money. And, one of the things that you hit on that was really difficult is the fact that there wasn't strip clubs like there are now. Not at all. I mean, basically, a lot of adult entertainment as far as dancers went were if it was a party or a club, clubs used to shut down for the night, have a private party, and then bring in dancers. It just wasn't like it is now. It was very much sort of clandestine kind of a thing. And so everything was cash, of course. And one of the problems, if you look at Los Angeles in the 1980s, there was a lot of stuff going on then. We had a record number of serial killers targeting everybody, strippers, prostitutes. I mean, if you were in that industry, you were targeted, and the police did nothing. Bodies were piling up in alleys, and police did absolutely nothing. And back then, unlike today, literally, you were not helped at all. If you showed up at a homeless shelter or a domestic violence shelter, you were actually rejected. You were rejected from drug treatment. And one of the reasons is they were afraid that your pimp was going to show up. And you could tell them you're blue in the face that you didn't have a pimp, and they just did not care. They did not listen. They did not care. In their mind, you were a criminal. 100%. Anybody in this industry was viewed as a criminal. So everything had to be done. And that's one of the reasons why the family recruited me. They did. Is I had a very clean-cut face, college girl, and I was able to do things like get leases and open bank accounts, etc. And I broke away from them, and it was really difficult because I was seeing people trapped by we weren't able to get credit. We weren't able to get insurance. We weren't able to just live like a normal person. We weren't able to build credit. Just the cash economy back then was just so difficult. It really was a form of its own trap. I got tired of all the police. I got tired of the pimps. And I literally said, I'm just going to set up a business. And I actually opened up a theater. I got this warehouse and opened up an adult theater. And in that theater, video cassette machines had just come out. So, and it wasn't like today, And what I did was I said you could come rent an adult movie in a private room with a nude hostess, and the sex was free. So therefore, there was no prostitution. It was a hoot. It was an absolute hoot. Everybody wanted to come with, because you didn't have to do anything. You could literally sit there and watch this movie with this guy. If you wanted to, you could take a tip, not take a tip, whatever you wanted. decided that there was a problem with us having a normal life. And it was his mission to do everything he could to destroy us and to put us out of business. So he was like constantly trying to set me up, follow me around. And when he realized that I wasn't doing anything illegal, then he would try to plant drugs on me. It was a constant cat and mouse game with this guy. And when finally, he literally organized a task force to come after me, and I had a SWAT team dragging me out, literally with the helicopter of the SWAT team. I could not believe what this guy went to come after me. And I literally said to him, I said, I've made everything clean and safe, and everybody's got, a check, and everybody's got credit, and nobody's being beaten, and everybody's safe. What is wrong with you? Why would you shut this down? Because I was literally running like the only place in town. And in my mind, there was a lot of women that were able to get away from very violent, dangerous pimps, because they could come and literally get away from them and come stay there. And we had security keep these guys at the door. I'm like, why would you do this? Why would you stop us from what we're doing? And he literally had an attitude that I have found very common, actually, among a lot of people, is that you should be out there on the corner where you belong. I mean, it just blew my mind that some people have this kind of attitude about us. But they do, And, I was sitting with my attorney, and I said, this is ridiculous the way that we're treated. Absolutely ridiculous. We provide a valuable service, whatever it is that we're doing, and I don't understand this attitude at all. And he said to me, you know what? He said, as long as you're in the business, you'll never be able to do a damn thing to change it. He said, the only way that you're going to ever even be listened to is if you quit. He said, otherwise they're going to be able to shut you out. He said, until you become a quote-unquote normal citizen, they will shut you out of every door because they're going to classify you as a criminal, no matter what you do. He said, if you really want to change it, you're going to have to quit. Oh, my God. I had over $1 million in real estate, cash, property, everything they confiscated from me, and I was 24 years old, and I'm going to have to quit. This was difficult, very difficult. I was not a drug addict. I did not have a pimp, I mean, I'm making money hand over fist. Our phone sex operation was dragging in like $30,000 a week, and it was basically, he had a point. He said, when have you ever seen them listen to anybody in the business? And I'm like, okay, I'll do this. Because another thing I did not understand is the way they were dragging us off. They were literally going into clubs, they were going into massage parlors, just dragging off women, throwing them in buses, ruining their lives, taking their kids away from them. I did not understand this at all. But then I'm seeing a drug addict, neglecting their child, being told that they can go off to treatment instead of jail. That was just like beyond my comprehension. And then I was explained that the reason for that is that there was no legal system set up to provide an alternative. That there were programs for the addict to go to, but there was nothing for us if we were arrested for prostitution. And nobody wanted to deal with us. Nobody wanted to work with us. Back in '86, right before I started this, they literally had a proposition out where they wanted to take us out to an island and quarantine us. Us, gays, and donkeys, they wanted to take us to an island, literally, and quarantine us. That's the way that we were being viewed at that time. So, thank God that got defeated, because I'm like, they're going to haul me out to an island, never to be heard from again. Oh, great, and it blew my mind. Because I was also seeing actual sex trafficking happening before the term was coined. Back in my day, the only word we had for it was white slavery. There literally wasn't even a word for it. Because if you went around to people and said that there were people being sold by our government, to steal oil deals and drug deals, there was just no word for it. And if anybody wonders what I mean by that, there's an opening sequence in Enter the Dragon I love, and I sometimes do think Bruce Lee might have actually been killed before that movie came out. Because the opening sequence where he explains that there's laws about drugs, there's laws about, guns, but there's literally no law to stop American women being sold to other countries. And that is a fact. There was literally no recognition that it was even real back then. So therefore there was no system set up to stop it because it wasn't viewed as real. And if you talk to anybody, they're like, well, the government told me you're basically asking us to set up something to rescue people from aliens. How could we go out and set up something to rescue people from aliens when we don't even recognize that something like that is real. And I'm like, are we so off your radar as human beings that you really don't understand this? And it's like, in their minds, we were criminals, 100%. And even if you were working as a dancer in a legitimate club, even if you were working on, sets, as a paid legal actor, in their mind, you were a prostitute, and we were all lumped in the same category. And that's, we started out, the only reason we started out our group as Prostitutes Anonymous is that legal requirement is if you were arrested for prostitution. I wanted to provide a system to where the court could turn around and hand you over to our program rather than jail. Because I just thought it was absolutely insane to be hauling us off to jail for something like this, And then, of course, our kids were put in foster care, and then we had records, and it was just that whole insanity. So, that's why we started out as Prostitutes Anonymous. It wasn't a statement. It wasn't saying that we thought people were addicted or anything. It was just purely and simple so that we could set up something where, if you got found guilty of prostitution for whatever reason, which was very common, you weren't doing anything wrong, that just some cop decided to haul you off like that, and so that way, and see, what really has blown my mind is in 87 when I started this, the County of Los Angeles could not hand over people to me fast enough. We literally went into the women's jail, and out of 2,000 inmates, they handed me 1,800 women. Here, get them out of here. We went into the transgender jail. They handed me every single transgender prostitute in there. We cleared out like 400 men. They were just handing them to me. They wanted them out of the system because it was expensive. It was costing the county money to be arresting and housing these people in jail. And so for years, we were like the golden child of the system. They were just, the courts were handing them over to us right and left. We had an official program set up in LA. We had a program set up in the East Coast, and it's just like wildfire. I mean, it just took off like a shot. And then all of a sudden, and it's funny how little about politics I know, but I'm having to learn, is all of a sudden it was like somebody pulled the plug on us in 96. I did not know what happened. But it was like all of a sudden nobody wanted to talk to me anymore. We stopped getting cooperation from the courts. The police stopped working with us. The police literally used to hand out our card if somebody was in trouble and say, here, call them, they'll help you out. Because there was no help if you had a pimp back then bothering you. There was none. There was no way that you could call the police. There was nowhere to go, so, we were it. And even if you wanted to stop, we didn't make a distinction. If you got sick, you got old, you wanted to quit the business, we were providing support for you. And if you had problems with a pimp, we could get you out of that situation. So whatever your problem was, they would tell us, we were the first hotline for anything. And basically, it was any problems you had, you called us. But in 96, it was really strange. The court all of a sudden just started pulling away from us, and I did not know what was going on. And then I thought, after the Trafficking Act was passed in 2000, I thought that would change things. Because what they were telling me was back then, if you were raped or kidnapped or beaten, and you went to victim services, and it didn't matter if you were a prostitute or a stripper or in pornography, it did not matter. In their mind, you were all the same. They would refuse you any type of victim assistance, just purely on the fact that you were in the sex industry. It didn't matter if anything you did was legal, but if you worked in the industry and you were raped and you went to victim services, they would not provide you with any assistance. And I don't think that's right, especially for those that were in legal professions that had no criminal records. It made no sense to me that they would penalize you and not provide you with the same services as a housewife who was raped. So we were told that the money would be available for us once the Trafficking Act was passed because it would then allow that American women could be provided with government services. And that was another thing I didn't understand. If you were Chinese, the government would roll out the red carpet and assist you if anything happened. But if you were American, they actually acted like nothing could happen to an American. So therefore, there was nothing they could do to help you. And let me tell you, a lot of people sacrificed a lot to get that Trafficking Act passed because what happened was all these attorney generals were calling me up saying it's not right that we're paying for, foreign nationals when they're, being, pimped and beaten and raped, et cetera, and we've got to take care of them and send them home or rehabilitate them. It's not fair that we can't do that for an American. And the government was insisting on not giving us that recognition. So I remember we had a conference call one day, me and a bunch of attorney generals. We had a big conference call, and we were like, we're going to have to force their hand. And I remember saying, can you actually write the check? And they said, yeah, of course, we've got the bank account. And I'm like, then you can write the check. And they said, yes. And I said, then start doing it. Start paying for services for Americans. What are they going to do? Turn around and then say, we're not going to pay these bills for an American? I said, that will force their hand. And what blew my mind is that, it worked. It gets trafficking at pass, but George W. Bush actually fired 22 U.S. attorneys, and he refused to give a reason. And, all the media wondered, why did he do this? He just literally turned around and fired 22 U.S. attorneys. And I remember looking at the list, and every one of those attorneys were the attorneys that were trying to provide help for Americans that were, needing assistance of some kind. And, I mean, we can't say definitely, but it sure seemed to be, what he did it for, because George Bush was definitely not a friend of anybody in the sex industry. His family was involved in sex trafficking that I saw in the 80s over oil deals, and he has done nothing but fight any type of assistance, that we could possibly have, including that Trafficking Act. When we got it passed for a couple of years, we were starting to set up programs. Everything seemed to be moving along fine. And then 2002 comes along, and this Polaris starts up. And I found out real quick they're not what they pretend to be. And they were preparing for what happened in 2003, which is basically our government turned around and said that all of this federal money that we had worked from 87 to 2000, 13 years, we'd worked all that time to get money available to help us and to recognize us as what human beings and American citizens and to be treated equally and to get the same assistance as a housewife. They turned all of the control of the money over to the church, who have not been our friend, as you know, most of the time. So, it's turned into this whole zoo. It's just been this complete zoo where all the money is now being basically turned around to whatever the churches decided they want to do, while they're claiming that they're wanting to help. It's absolutely been a nightmare. But I found out what happened in 96. Clinton passed an immigration policy to now require that 36,000 inmates are required to be in the jails and prisons at any given time. Literally, they have to have a quota of 36,000 inmates. Now, I've talked to the police because the whole point of what I did here with this starting of this group and this program was stop having us arrested, was to stop having us rounded up like cattle and hauled off to jail, both us and customers, and to stop this whole mass, incarceration going on. Well, it hasn't. They've changed names. They call it in demand now when they haul off the Johns and impound their cars, and they claim that they're doing trafficking rescues now when they're hauling off the women in the paddy wagons. They've just changed the name. And I'm trying to understand why they've been actively trying to undermine it. And then, I've come to realize it's because they have this quota. And I've talked to the chiefs of police, and they go, what are we supposed to do? We're handed no money for proper investigation of real criminals. We're handed no money at all. We're told that we have to arrest so many people by a certain day or time. And he says the quickest way we know how to do it is a prostitution sting. And I'm like, so that's it? That's why you're still targeting us in this way, is because of this quota. And of course, they want the immigrants. They want as many Mexicans or foreign nationals as they can. Because I'm being told, we just had a protest in September that has not been getting a lot of play in the press, but we just had a national protest because all these, Hispanics, Mexicans, Cubans, everything that they can round up that's non-American, they have not been treating them as American citizens, which means that they've not been giving them a phone call, they've not been giving them medical coverage, they've not been allowing them any of their rights, and they have no right to receive trial. So they've literally been holding them as long as possible, just holding on to them to keep that quota in and not processing them back to their families. I mean, it's insane. They're literally being held hostage. I have of let's work together, of providing whatever assistance they might need, and having the system work together with us is not working. They are after us. They're after as many of us to lock us up as possible. So that means that at this point, the only solution that I see for protection of what is happening to us out there is union, which is one of the reasons why I started, tracking down, is there a union? And I started tracking down things and found you guys because, I really, I feel that I need to really throw a lot of my energy and my weight right now into providing as much assistance to the union as possible because of the victimization that I'm seeing right now in the industry. And the fact that the courts and the lawyers, et cetera, it's a massive war against us right now. And the union is the only protection that I see at this point from the kind of victimization that I'm seeing now. And they've gotten smart. These guys now, they've got their lawyers, they've got their corporations behind them. They're getting you guys to sign contracts that you don't even realize what you're signing. And
those contracts are crazy.
I'm running into, I'll provide you with a perfect example, is I had a woman call me for help and tell me she wanted out. She wanted to get out of what was happening. And next day, I had her lawyer calling me up, threatening me with a restraining order if I tried to contact her again. And I'm going, you don't understand. She called me for help. And he goes, you don't understand. She's got a power of attorney. We have control over her. And I'm like, I said, can I see this? And this is for the last couple of years, the contracts that I have handed to me that are definitely not meant. The person obviously didn't think this when they signed the contract. They had no clue. I had another case when there was a series not long ago on television on A&E called 8 Minutes. It was supposedly, an 8-minute rescuing people from sex trafficking thing that it was not reality. It was purely staged. And I had a woman calling me who had been an actress on this show telling me that they were screwing with her contract. It was not real. It was scripted and that they were screwing her over, et cetera, and they were portraying her full face as a prostitute on the show. And she said they had promised her that her face would be blurred. And she's like, I can't deal with this. I've got kids. She said, I can't be blasted out to America as a prostitute, And she begged me for help. I said, no problem. I'll take care of it. I can get an injunction against the show from airing you. And that's what got me at odds with Relativity Media over this show.
Well, Jody,
next thing I know,
we have 4 callers that have called in, and I think they want to ask you questions.
Yeah, let me just tell you real quick.
Okay.
All of a sudden, she is appearing to be online, claiming that I'm not helping her, et cetera. She didn't want her help out. She's saying all these crazy-ass things online. I go back to her, and I'm like, why are you saying these things online? She said, that's not me. And I'm like, okay. I come to find out she had signed the contract with these people for her license, for her image, her name, et cetera. So when she done the show, she signed away all these rights to where they were pretending to be her online. Definitely not something she anticipated happening. So, it's things like this that I'm running into that they're not warning people in the industry about that I think is pretty important for unions to be out there to do.
That's very, very true. So we had a few callers. Are you guys there?
Yes.
I'm not sure who was all called, but does anyone have a question for Jody? Or who's there?
I'm here if you got questions. Yeah, because this is something that I'm seeing now is so many of these contracts that they're not even advised of what they're doing with their contracts. And they're certainly not giving them any orientation when they're signing them. And I'm the one that's seeing how it's biting their ass in the end.
I know we had one girl just recently commit suicide because they wouldn't let her out of her contract. And she didn't know any better. And so the agent was threatening to take her to court. But what court in their right mind is going to say, I'm sorry, but you're under contract to have sex? You have to have sex when you don't want to?
They're lying.
That's crazy.
Lying.
Yeah, so these contracts, I would love to see one of those go to court.
Because I've been a paralegal since I took the business. I have worked with some of the top lawyers in this industry, and I've beat the pants off some lawyers. I know the law. And I've seen the way they bluff these women. It blows my mind. Like these gag orders that I keep hearing about. I've got women right and left telling me, I can't talk to you. I'm under a gag order. And
what's a gag order? Just so people know.
They've been hit with some gag order where they can't talk to the press or they can't talk to somebody about what's going on.
And sex trafficking comes in a couple of different forms. It's not necessarily what you're normally thinking sex trafficking is, where you're kidnapped and taken across seas. This is,
with the church.
yeah.
This is my biggest objection with the church. The church has been bombarding us with films like Taken and Eden and, I mean, these crazy-ass films about sex trafficking. And, you know, maybe they're valid in other countries. I'll give it that. But as far as, this is my bone to pick, as far as what American sex trafficking looks like, it's not what these movies are pumping out. And there are many different forms of it, absolutely. And some of it is just very subtle. It's extremely subtle in the sense that, you know, nobody's putting a gun to someone's head and, you know, saying, you know, you do this or else. You know, it's not like a lot of the portrayal that you're seeing on television, which is actually one of the reasons why I'm working on a couple of projects right now to get that information out. And it's amazing how much intimidation I've been getting to shut those productions down. Because the people that are involved in American sex trafficking do not want Americans knowing what it looks like. So I've already set up 2 productions now that have been shut down through these threats, intimidation, etc.
So who do we have online right now? I mean, on air. I know there's a 323 number. Who's that?
Right.
Oh, okay. Hello, Flint.
How you
You
doing
still there?
tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I didn't get a chance to catch who your guest is.
Oh, it's Jody Williams.
Hi, Jody.
I don't know if she can. She's calling from my phone. Are you there, Jody?
Yeah, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't know if she can hear.
Oh.
So we may have to hold calls.
Okay.
So we may just have to hold all the
Okay.
calls.
Yeah, just tell me his question.
Or just ask me a question and I'll repeat it.
All right, well, I wanted to ask her, where can I follow her and where can I purchase her movies?
He wants to know where he can find the information about Sex Workers Anonymous.
Oh, it's easy to find at sexworkersanonymous.com is our main website. And I've got information about my background, you know, stuff, the work that I've been involved with at hightechmadam.com. That's, when he busted me in 84, that's the title they gave me, is High Tech Madam. Because literally I had all this security equipment, et cetera, you know, set up in the warehouse, and the computer that was unknown at that time, you know, in the industry.
So we were discussing sex trafficking, and I looked up the definition of sex trafficking in the dictionary. Have you ever done that? And
Well, it's interesting to see the term that they've come up with it. Yeah, I'm not sure if I quite agree with it, but I haven't seen the dictionary definition now.
it says it's an illegal business of recruiting, harboring, transportation, obtaining, or providing a person for the purpose of sex. So I looked up the definition of recruiting, and it says suitable people to get them to join a company. And harboring is a place of safety and comfort. So what it sounds like is that offering a place of safety and comfort to join them for the purpose of sex.
Yeah, it used to be, before the Trafficking Act, the only two laws we really had was cheating and pandering. Pandering, of course, was the enticement of someone into the business, you know, trying to talk them into it. And then pimping, of course, was taking money off the earnings of a prostitute. Now, the problem with that, of course, is there was no law against intimidating somebody into that money. And there was absolutely no law when it was an organized criminal operation that was running you like cattle, like owning you. There was absolutely no recognition of that kind of thing, which of course there was then, there is now. You know, and oh my God, I've got to tell you, it has exploded in this country. I'm frightening myself. What's going on? The Chinese, the Russians, and the Mexicans are running sex trafficking operations that are mind-boggling in operation to me right now that we're contending with. And what's even worse is the fact that I'm not just fighting them, I'm fighting people within Homeland Security and the immigration and the trafficking task forces at the same time. You know, and this is something I'd like people to understand is I do not advise anybody to call a trafficking hotline right now at all. And if they wonder what I mean by that, all they have to do is type in this Oakland sex scandal. Because for years I was telling people, don't call the trafficking hotline. Because what was happening at that point is they were aware that you were calling and they were launching into action to silence you and intimidate you and to back you down. And people were not believing me until this case with Johann David Lee, who literally in Homeland Security and Immigration, and he was, I mean, can you imagine fighting somebody in Homeland Security and Immigration? This is what we were dealing with. And where do you go at that point? I went to the Attorney General's office, and they're scared, they're being threatened. I went to, the prosecutor. Everybody's telling me along the line, from the prosecutor to the Attorney General to the U.S. they're all being intimidated. I know of very few people right now that can actually put some traction behind protecting you if you're being trafficked. But at least I know who those really good people are,
So the only one safe at the moment, you would say, I mean, there's probably a couple more, but the Sex Workers Anonymous, you're getting...
They're better than to call me, because I tell you, this is something I call catfishing, and it's very frightening. There are a lot of fake groups. In my day, we had them too. In my day, the sex traffickers used to do things like they used to set up a new escort service or a new club, and they used to put out alerts that they were hiring. And what they would do is they'd find out if you were unhappy or if you were thinking about leaving, and then they knew. They knew that you were getting ready to go somewhere or do something or whatever. And they also, of course, had their friends in the police force. That was that thing. But now what they've got, literally, they've got people from 911 to the trafficking task forces to the groups that are set up that are appearing to be that rescue that literally are part of. In fact, oh my God, in California and Florida right now, and Texas too, I know, and I still am not getting answers out of anybody what to do about it, but they are being represented as actual safe houses for trafficking victims. And the women in there are being trafficked, and the people that are running them are the local police.
That's crazy.
And our legal system is set up in such a crazy way to where the only way to file any type of case is with the local police. Well, how do you do that when it's the local police? Which is another thing I found out real quick with this is there is not the internal affairs anymore that you think there is. So I've gone through all the headaches of finding out where not to go. I do know where to go now if somebody's in trouble. Yes, please, if they can call me, I'll call Severe Confidential. We can get them whatever help it is they need confidentially.
Now, tell us a little bit about the 12-step program. What exactly is, give us an example of one of the steps, or a couple of the steps.
Well, you don't find out how hard it is to quit until you quit, and sometimes, because, as I said, my attorney's like, if you really want to change things, you got to quit. And he's right, because they really would have thrown me out of their offices if I hadn't been out of business and a paralegal, And so, because that way I can demand their attention. And that's the thing, is it was extremely difficult for me to quit, especially with the money I was making.
Yeah, the money's addicting, and the attention is addicting.
Yeah, and another thing is sometimes, people don't realize, sometimes you have to quit. Sometimes you're in the middle of a divorce, and you've got a husband coming at you going, she's a whore, and all, it's like you have to, okay, I got to go do a secretarial job or something, and deal with all these legal issues. I mean, things come up sometimes, and we just have to do it. And it's not in our best interest to go back, and even though it's legal, yes, it's perfectly legal to say the answer, but if you're in the middle of a custody hearing, it's not going to help you. So then, and this is the kind of people that we get a lot of times in the group, is that they have to quit for a lot of reasons where they don't really want to quit, but they have to. And that's hard, And so I wouldn't know if I'd call it so much of a classic addiction. I don't think I've come across maybe two or three people I'd say it was an addiction. But it's just really difficult, to quit something.
So what is a step? Let's say, what's step number one?
Well, step number one is the same thing. It's, we're powerless over the industry, which, we are. We're powerless over it. And so we tend to realize more that, we don't want people to think that we're against the industry. We're not against the industry. So we've taken our first step and just said we're powerless over our addiction. Now, all we mean by that is that any type of self-destructive behavior, and we don't mean the business, we just mean any self-destructive behavior, which means if it doesn't suit me to be in the business, if it's not in my best interest, then, I'm going to let that go. But I'm also going to let go of a lot of other things that might be self-destructive. So that's why we've got sort of the generic term of addiction. Because some of us are trying to stay clean. Some of us are trying to stop eating disorders, So we've just got it all kind of lumped in there. Whatever it is that's self-destructive that we're doing, that's our first step.
Now, I know that our president, Elizabeth, are you there?
Yes.
I know that this is a very passionate subject of Beth's is human trafficking, because I know that she lives in Portland, and she knows that, like, down the street there's a house that are full of women that are trafficking. Correct?
That's what I mean. I'm hearing about this all over the country. That they're being in so-called trafficking houses where they're being trafficked, and it's the police that are running it. So it's not like you go off.
Would this be considered human trafficking if you take people off the street and close them, house them, and maybe put them through the sex industry?
Yes, as I said, it's going on in many states right now. It's appearing to the
Would that be considered human trafficking?
I'm sorry?
Would that be considered human trafficking if you took people off the streets and put them into the sex industry?
If anyone is in this industry, legal or not, against their will, that's trafficking. Yes.
But what about being manipulated to be
Same thing.
like?
Because, there is brainwashing, and that's something I think certified as an expert by the FBI to explain brainwashing. Because a lot of times people do think that it is their own free will, but there is brainwashing. It's very real, and I'll tell you what, I really recommend anybody who's curious about this to look up these videos by Darren Brown. Darren Brown has videos of like the heist, and in the heist, he actually brainwashes people, ordinary citizens, into literally robbing an armored truck at gunpoint, and they think it's their idea. I mean, this blows my mind, these videos this guy does, of the brainwashing that you can do of a human being to make someone think it's their idea. So that's a gray area, and I am able to identify brainwashing, because sometimes I've been called in on cases with a person saying, oh, no, I was doing it all on my own free will, and I have to be brought in to determine if they're brainwashing or if it's truly voluntary.
If it's something that they would have done otherwise without all the promises.
Right. Yeah, like this person wasn't going to rob the armored truck of their own free will otherwise, yeah. But that's the thing about that. See, in my own situation, I had to come to grips with my own situation where I was manipulated. These men literally went around to all these jobs, got me fired. I was thinking that, I was having a problem, and I was literally manipulated into a situation where I thought I was calling out to them for help. And I did not find out until years later that I had been manipulated into that corner. And that is a really screwed up betrayed feeling to think that people you turn to for help were actually manipulating you into that situation.
Now, the girls that you say that you pull out of the brothels, why do they have to call you for help? Why can't they just walk out and leave? It's not like there's not another girl ready to take her place in 2 seconds. Why are they wanting to take a hold of these girls?
Well, you take into account that sometimes they can't. No, in many cases they can't. There's a case you can look up online called Operation Dollhouse in Las Vegas. And what happened is there were 24 women in private homes that literally were not allowed to leave. They were not allowed off the property. And, how do you get out? The only men that were brought into the place were men from China that the cab company would literally, they had Chinese cab drivers that would verify the man
That's crazy. Bella
No
Doll,
extra night.
Bella Doll, are you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Hey, did you have a question?
No, actually, I have a statement.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know this about me, but in the Boston area in the early to mid-2000s, for about 7 years, I myself ran an escort agency. And, well, you know, you guys asked the question about, you know, why the girls stay, you know, quote-unquote, willingly, and you guys are talking about the brainwashing that goes on. You know, I worked with a lot of temps to get a lot of girls off the street. The better ones, you know what I mean? The temps that were more like managers, they weren't like dating the girls and stuff like that. And we sort of, you know, worked together to, I mean, these girls weren't going to leave, and so, you know, we decided we were going to make it as legitimate and as safe as possible. And so that's what we did when we were out there. But the reason these girls get with these temps is not just because of financial investment. There's a lot of emotional manipulation that goes on, and I'm really surprised people haven't touched on that more. You know, everybody that I worked with went to prison in the Danish Health Club scandal in Maine. I was the only one to win it because, you know, I was legit and on the up and up, and, you know, I had no problem with law enforcement whatsoever. And they knew what they were looking for, but the reason they got caught is because the girl they were running was underage. So, obviously, she couldn't consent. A lot of these girls grow into the business by being scooped up as teenagers, and then you know, keep taking chances on underage girls, is because if they get them young enough, they become emotionally independent.
That's
you
so
know,
sad.
Those prostitutes, that right there kind of explains it.
That's so sad.
It's going to get worse. So let me tell you, it's going to get really bad now, and let me tell you why. In the 1970s, they passed this juvenile act about drugs, and all of a sudden, because of that, basically, if you were juvenile, they didn't do anything but slap you on the wrist. So all of the drug industry turned around to having kids running drugs and dealing drugs. So the juvenile courts were just jammed all of a sudden with drugs and juveniles. Well, they've turned around recently, I think it's about last year. Yeah, last year. They passed the law. I was screaming at the legislature. I'm like, no. They passed the law basically where if you're a juvenile now involved in any type of prostitution, hands off. And I'm like, no, because now what's happened is all of a sudden everything has now shifted entirely onto juveniles. There's not even the same, you know, what are they going to do? If you're not going to arrest a juvenile for prostitution, that means that she's not going to prosecute pimps. It's called carte blanche. There is now carte blanche on juveniles right now to involve them in prostitution. There is a pipeline
she'll never get
at 16. Because the legal age for sex in Nevada is 16.
Yeah.
And they've literally got 16-year-old girls up in those little brothels working as prostitutes at 16. And that is not right. I'm sorry.
That is not right.
No.
Yeah, if they can't be arrested, they don't have access to
the parents or guardians driving them up there, and then they're told that it is against the law for them to walk out on foot. I mean, I'm sorry. That is legal prostitution.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, but that's what they did. They passed this law last year that they're not going to prosecute juveniles for prostitution. And it sounds great. Well, we're not going to arrest them anymore for prostitution. Okay, well then where does the prosecution come in for the pimp? You know, and now that's it. You're going to be seeing so many juveniles now turn out. The stuff that I'm hearing about now, it is exploding.
It's getting worse
So
by the
are
day.
you focusing on the Johns, maybe?
Oh, well, any place that Swanee Hunt has done one of her in-demand grants, I mean, that is a smokescreen as far as I'm concerned. That is not ending demand when they're arresting jobs. What they're trying to do is corral them into the legal brothel. Very recently, very few people know this, but very recently they've done it on the fly, but Dennis Hawk has got a law passed where he can now send alcohol anywhere in the United States. And the reason why they're busting Johns and busting hookers and
been 16 in Nevada, or is that new?
In Nevada, it's 16, yeah.
And no one's ever fought to raise that age limit?
16.
16?
Okay, wait, no, yeah,
Isn't that still a federal
you're right,
crime?
porn is 18, no, but the crazy thing is that they can strip and prostitute at 16.
That's
It's
crazy.
possible. Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy,
And a
isn't
lot
it?
of them, what he's been doing,
Well, yeah.
because he got involved, Dennis Hoff got involved with immigration and Homeland Security because he's been auctioning off virgins from Colombia. Joe Conforti has been shipping, and that's what Joe Hom David did, is he goes to these other countries to fly over these virgins from like Brazil and stuff, and then Dennis was auctioning them off. And they were getting work permits at 16 to be in the restaurants of the brothel. And it's all legal. And I'm sorry, it may be legal, but I still consider that trafficking. Because, unless somebody sits down with this poor girl and identifies whether she really wants to be there, which is not done, you don't know,
That's so sad. At 16, can you imagine at 16 years old being stuck like
That's
that?
just 16, yep.
Yeah, there's got to be no way to determine free will at that point, except for psychiatric evaluation.
Yep. And that's,
I mean, that's
there was a grant. Well, this is what
complicated, expensive.
system
Nobody
works.
wants to do it.
2007, I worked on a report with Melissa Farley, which I kind of regret, kind of don't. I mean, I have very mixed feelings, but I was told that in order to get anything done in Nevada, we had to do a report with the State Department. So we did a report in 2007. I've got stuff up at that press conference. We brought in very reputable press. They all verified that, yes, this was going on. Yes, sex trafficking was going on within the legal brothels of Nevada. So we gave the international press conference. We put out the alerts about all of this stuff. An $870,000 grant came in. Salvation Army came to me and said, we want you to head up the program to do something about trafficking in Nevada. And I said, great. Next thing I know, they had put in a school teacher to head up the program. But it was still written the way I've written it, which is that anybody, I wanted to question, are you here voluntarily? You know what I mean? I was allowed to question. Literally, Metro Police Department gave them an $370,000 grant to restructure their program, which was that they would only work with people referred to them by Metro. So at the end of the year, for $870,000, Nevada had helped 0 trafficking victims. You like that? Yeah, because they weren't allowed to question anybody. And Metro wasn't going to refer anybody to them. And believe me, there's a lot of cops that are getting sex off us for free, and they're not going to want that to come out to light. So, they're doing a lot of covering up of a lot of stuff, the police, obviously.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend that sees a police constantly, or has a couple of policeman friends constantly.
It's a shame because, this is, who are we going to call? I mean, this is why I say people take a good look at the open sex scandal, because here's a woman who literally was being told by the police, no, don't go out on this day. No, you can't call this task force. No, you can't call these people, because they're all busy covering their ass for not only sleeping with her, but also trafficking in her. And so, literally, she had, half the police force keeping her from help, which is in itself, how do you leave and how do you say no to a cop? I mean, I don't know about you, but when I had the cop come to me and insist on sex, I don't know how to say no to that if I know I'm going to be all about the jail if I say no.
Yeah, right.
I consider it a form of rape.
So, this sex workers program that you invented, it will give them. Does it still work? They still gives them an alternative to jail time?
Oh yeah. We are being fought by the system, but they cannot deny you. If you are busted for prostitution, all you got to do is say, "Can I go to a sex workers anonymous meeting instead of jail?" And they have to say yes. It's discrimination. So we do have that option. Yes, absolutely.
That's good to know. Because that's on your record, and that's hard to get off. Does it? And you can get that off, or no?
Oh, yeah. What we can do is, if there is a conviction, I go back and we send one of our members in with you, wherever you are in the country. We send one of our members in with you, and we get an expungement. It's not a problem. And I want people to know that, because that is another form of threat and intimidation. There's a prosecutor in Missouri who supposedly pressured like 200 women into sex
contacted me yesterday or the day before, and she's here on a work visa, and her passport was stolen and her wallet, and so she can't get back home. And then they're saying that she that her work visa isn't valid, so now no one will hire her.
Oh, I can get her out. Yeah, I mean, I do know the right people. That's the only thing is it's just so many of the wrong people when you call. It's just you have to be so careful. But we do know people in immigration that are really great, fantastic people, in law enforcement that are wonderful. I mean, we can get them the help we need, yeah.
That's good. And I feel so sorry for that one little girl. Like, if you are in a contract in the adult business and they're threatening you to go to court, just call the union or call Sex Workers Anonymous or call someone to help you. Don't commit suicide because they're not going to take you to court on a sex contract.
Well, see, that's another thing, why I want to support the union as much as I can, because I don't want people to think that they have to quit just to get help. I want to be able to support what they're doing too, because, of that reason, when I heard that, there was a performer who was told that if she did not stand up next to James Dean, who had raped her, and present an award, that they would consider her a breach of contract, I would have told her, man, you tell them you can hit them with this, you can hit them with that, you'll sue them in their freaking eternity. I mean, I would have so advised her completely differently. But that's one reason why they've been trying very hard to not let women in the industry know that they exist, is because I will tell them that's a bunch of hogwash, and this is what you can threaten to counter them with to give them, protection. But again, I wouldn't even have to do that if we had a union. If we had a union where they could call their union rep and say, I'm being threatened, yada, 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 they could be advised properly.
Exactly.
Not by attorneys that are advised by the companies that retain them. And this is one mistake a lot of women in the industry make. They think that this lawyer is advising them for their good. No, his retainer is with these guys. That's what he's going to be telling them.
It's something that benefits them.
Exactly. And I see a lot of women being sold out, and they go, well, my attorney, and I say, okay, whose attorney is paying this guy? Who's his retainer by? Oh, well, the company that I work for. Yeah, but no, honey, that's not your attorney.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not your attorney.
No, and believe me, they lie.
And they're so young. They're so young at 18 years old. They don't know better.
No, they don't.
At 21, you barely know better. Like the scandalous stuff that can go on here, you don't know better.
No, I mean, like I said, I've been a paralegal 30 years. It's taken me this long to learn what I know about the contract laws, and even I'm seeing them do things with these contracts that blow my mind, like I said. So I've learned all the little dirty tricks and everything, and I'd rather people be sort of forewarned, forearmed, and be able to understand that, you're going to be lied to by, owners, by managers, by lawyers, and their attitude is, what are you going to do, silly? Well, if you know the right people, yeah, we can.
Cool. So finally we have backup.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's what a union's for, to unite so we can be stronger for these things to protect each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I called...
we need to do more of that, because, this is one thing, I was telling you about Live Nation. Live Nation is a company that goes out and they work with a lot of dancers to recruit them for videos and for concerts and stuff, and they go out to strip clubs recruiting. But they also have a lobbyist of the Nevada Defense Lawyers Association, which, believe me, they want a retainer. When you get busted for something, they want you to give them a retainer. They don't want you knowing you can call, your union or, Sex Workers Anonymous and get the legal help you need for free. They don't want you knowing that. So, there's a lot of stuff they're not telling you because it's their, financial business to not to.
Yeah, because it's in their financial interest.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still there, Bella? I think we lost her.
I'm here. Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was just muting. I didn't want there to be any feedback. Turn down your radio when you call in.
Cool. Yeah, I know that this stuff trafficking is bad, and it's right here in your own back door. So, and it comes in different forms. Just to repeat myself.
Different forms. Yeah, and another thing, this is why they're fighting the union. Absolutely, it's why they're fighting the union. Same way they've been fighting me. It's because they want the girls innocent. Or the boys. They want the boys and the girls innocent. They want them to not know that they have backup, that, they have rights, and that there is places to go. Because it is scary when you see the chief of police or, police officer standing there in uniform saying for me. Let me, because sometimes you can't always call one now.
Yeah, or just reach out to a friend or tweet it.
Yeah, tweet it. Yeah, tweet it. We're on Twitter even. Yeah,
tweet.
Any way they can get it out to it.
Yeah, just
Do you
tweet
guys
find
have
us.
a social media plan? Because I noticed you're not on a permanent website. I'd like to officially volunteer to help you with that.
Jody?
What? Oh, we have some
To help get the word out, get the websites all up and stuff, and
Bella Doll is a wonderful publicist, PR.
yeah, I just want to make sure everybody gets that message. I mean, that's probably your biggest problem right there. Logistics of finding people and getting them to know you and to trust you. So,
Absolutely. That is. Especially when I really
all
start
these things help to get the word out.
finding some pretty big people. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, anything.
So, I'd like to help.
You brought that up because it's funny you brought that up because in 2007, like I said, I did a press conference that sex trafficking was happening within legal clubs, nightclubs, and legal brothels. And because people were of the impression that sex trafficking is only something that happens on the street.
oh my God, that reminds me. I was out last week. I mean, I don't go out that much, and I've been out probably in a long, long time. Okay, I'm old. I'm older. And I walked into this club, and there's these girls that came in, and it was at the beginning of the club, and there was a group of them, and they were all kind of dressed up, but not really, because, their tags were sticking out, or you could see, like, their panty line, so, they kind of got dressed in a hurry. But they were there as, like, bait to get people into the club. And I guess that's a contract that they're under as well, that they go in and they get kind of dressed up really quick, and then they go into the club as bait, as meat bait. I didn't know that it's sex trafficking. I just thought that was very interesting. I've never seen that before.
Talent, too.
The trick that blows my mind.
It's the hallmark of a talent.
Yeah, it just, that blew my mind. I'm like, that's crazy. I guess it's a way to get a club going. I don't know.
Well, I tell you, to address, it's interesting what you brought up about, getting the word out. Let me say, everybody's known Sex Workers Anonymous up to a certain point. What happened in 2007 is we must have somehow laid down the gauntlet, because when we did that press conference and said it is happening within legal establishments and in strip clubs and on porn sets, in every legal establishment, there is trafficking. We gave out the official report. Literally, I had a woman come up to me, I still can't believe she did this, and she said, I'm here to deliver you a message from Sheldon Adelson. Your name is now blacklisted. She said, your name will never be printed anywhere. It will never be aired anywhere at any affiliate that we have any connection with. And now, if you have any idea how big Sheldon Adelson is, it's mind-blowing. And literally, you can see, when you look on my website, you'll see I did all these talk shows, I've been all over the press, and all of a sudden, 2007, it's like I just disappeared off the face of the earth. I mean, they actively don't want to, but I still have word of mouth. I have a very good reputation in the industry. Older people in the industry know who I am. And so what happened is they started on what I call counter media. Okay, I'm sure you guys are very aware of counter media, because there was a group that they actually put together called the Cupcake Girls.
I know those groups.
Literally, they were going into strip clubs, handing out makeovers, and the whole time they were doing it, they were bashing us and saying, if you have a problem, come to us. Well, the information was not going back to sources that were nice. It was really bad. They were basically scouting out information for very bad people and bashing us in the process. I had to literally come down and threaten with an injunction to stop it. Because, that's why I said, then I found out their lobbyists is the same lobbyist as for the actual traffickers. So I had proof. And I told them, I've got proof that you guys are associated with actual known traffickers that are convicted of trafficking. And now all of a sudden they've sort of backed up quietly.
Yeah, they have been quiet.
Yep, they've been quiet ever since I showed them I can connect them on paper with convicted traffickers. They've been backing up very quietly.
Because I thought they were a good organization at first. They were cool. You met them. They came and gave you cupcakes.
Well, you got to wonder why the AVN was pushing them and why the porn blogs were pushing them. Because I was just going, when they first came out, I'm like, what? And then I heard this thing that they were saying, this law that they passed in Nevada blew my mind. They were saying that you could not get a job in Nevada if you had a prostitution conviction. And I'm going, since when? I've been placing women in jobs and that's when I started digging and finding out all this other information, including...
Well, having any kind of conviction on your record, it makes it definitely harder.
It's not in Nevada, believe me. There are like marketing jobs, customer relation jobs. There are a lot of jobs in Nevada. Public relations, timeshares. Oh my God, the timeshare agencies love experts to do their timeshare sales. I mean, I have no problem getting rid of the job with the record.
Yeah, I bet.
That's what I said to them. I'm like, I don't have any problem. What are you talking about? Well, then I had to ask myself, what possibly could they be putting all of this effort into this law where supposedly a judge can with a signature wipe out your thing? And they were talking about expunging records. I'm like, I don't have any problem expunging records. I've been expunging records for people in Nevada, again, for like 20 years since I've lived there. What are you talking about? But I'm like, but we do it by going in and showing that the person is no longer in the industry, they haven't gotten in trouble again, they're going to meetings, you know, that kind of thing. Well, they have this thing with a judge signature, and then I realized, oh my God, you can't get a license as a prostitute to work at the brothel with a prostitution conviction.
Yeah, you
That's
can't.
what that's about.
You can't at the casino either, can you?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing, yeah, you can't be around gaming with a prostitution conviction. And I know that they can't handle money, but still, I've had no problem getting them in great, fantastic jobs.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't have to be in gaming or brothel.
Yeah, but in our way, we expunge the record by showing the person has been staying out of trouble, staying clean. You know, they got it to where basically a judge can just sign.
That's really nice of you, Bella, to offer the help. Thank you. I have to give
No problem at all.
It's kind of productive. They tell us,
I think the most important thing is finding these people because they build such things to hide themselves.
Yeah. And yeah, Bella can help you reach out. She's wonderful like that.
Yeah, but it never made sense to me. Why would you slap us with a record and then tell us that we have to get a job?
Yeah.
I mean, let's make it 1,000 times harder, right, guys? You know?
Yeah, right?
Which is another thing. I do know, like you said, like the timeshare job, and I know plenty of people that love to recruit ex-working women, like Enron was using this to sell stocks with great, but they didn't touch the sales or dealing with people. And I know companies that they're not going to broadcast, you know, we hire ex-strippers, you know, but they love it.
Yeah. I had a clothing store with like a huge clothing store chain offer us a place for an extra program to hire girls. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, job placement is key. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, in states other than Nevada, it's more difficult.
Yeah, we've got people everywhere that do that, and you know, and it's what got me started. Is I had a woman help me even. I had a woman. She ran a temp agency, and she knew all about me, and she got me into some fantastic jobs. She lied my way into so many jobs, but I was able to do them. You know, she just, you know, yeah. If I said my record, these lawyers would have never let me on foot in the premises. You know, but she got me in some big jobs, and then once people got to know me, I didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. We've got good people that can help you get placement all over the country, whatever state you're in.
Now tell us again, tell us again your organization and how to get a hold of you.
Well, sexworkersanonymous.com, pretty easy to find.
Okay.
I've got the 800 number on there.
And your hotline, a help hotline.
Yeah, and I've got the 800 number so that if you've got a cell phone, you don't want anybody knowing that you're calling me, just go to a payphone and you can call me on the 800 number.
Are there payphones anymore?
People call me for payphones, yeah.
You need a burner phone.
Yeah, burner phone.
Or a burner phone, yeah, Google phone, something with it, you know,
Make sure you can make calls to it. There's a few more bucks in the house.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But Sex Workers Anonymous is a great, trustworthy people to help you get out. If you're stuck in trafficking, doesn't always just mean that you came from a different part of the country. It just means that you're stuck in some kind of sex work position that you don't really want to be there and you can't leave.
I am so glad that we're partnering with them.
Yeah, right?
It's really important. I mean, it's the safety net. It's really the first thing that we need to do is we need to,
This
protect
is my-
people in, out. It doesn't matter. There's a cycle that goes for models and escorts and even agencies.
And just like as they were
and we
talking
need to get out
about,
of it and make sure people are prepared.
That's another thing, yeah. I mean, at some point, you're going to quit, and you're going to want to be supported. Because I don't know how much it is now, but I know in my day, when you quit, people would act like you betrayed them somehow, and
some kind of therapy group for things like that, right?
Melissa has a group, and, I don't have the information about that part of me because we have our own internal things still going on. But I'm pretty sure you can go to APEC Union, theLongHouses.com. There's also .org. The information is up there.
Yeah.
You have to contact her. It's in the Kioni. You have to contact her for approval, verification. And that's how we keep it anonymous. That's how she's keeping it anonymous. So, well, no, not. That's a great service right there. I know she's very, very passionate about that.
Any way to help I guess you could say a peer, or any way to help your neighbor.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it, is if you want out for whatever reason, if it's trafficking, if it's just you're older, your needs are giving out, whatever, we can help you figure out what that is you got to do to get out.
Yeah, or if you want to stay and be safe.
I mean, you said you had $1 million stacked up. A lot of these girls have a bunch of cash and it's gone in the first year because they don't know how to, either invest or adjust their lifestyle.
Oh, we have a great management.
With the girls who do well.
Yeah, we're having
That's another thing I was talking about is I'm dealing with a lot of times for people not having proper advisement in the beginning, proper training in the beginning. I'd like to see that so that I don't wind up with the wreckage 20 years later, and that's why I want to get more involved in helping you guys as you too.
Yeah, very true. We have to.
Easy.
Say it again. Very true.
It's hard to adapt.
It is hard to adapt. And you still always want to be.
Yeah, it's very hard to get out. Like I said, we've got phone support and meetings because sometimes you really don't have a choice, for whatever reason you might have to quit and need that support, yeah. And sometimes you do have to leave. Sometimes you have to get away from bad people, and that means that you can't talk to your old friends, and then what do you do? So, where I support whatever that is.
That's good to know.
That's
Thank
how
you.
I thought when all my friends went to prison. There was nobody left. I mean, it was just people I spent my holidays with, Thanksgiving and Christmas. We were actually trying to sort of foster a family atmosphere. Unfortunately, some people in our family were not well behaved. And then there were a lot of other people in trouble. And so when that happened, I didn't want to get involved in that. And it was just me. They were all gone, and it was just me. It was very lonely. What do I do now? Who do I talk to? And,
right. I went through a really hard time on probation because...
I did.
Yeah. Well, I went through a hard time on probation because, all anybody has to do, and I don't know if people realize this, but all anybody has to do is if the law considers them a known prostitute, is point a finger at you and say, she gave me a phone number, and then you're guilty of a felony. And my attorney advised me of this when I was on probation. He said, all any working girl has to do is turn to you and say, she gave me a number, and she gets off her case, and your ass goes to jail. And I'm like, so you're telling me I can't talk to anybody in the business for the next 2 years?
Oh, yeah, and that's another thing.
It's literally to save my ass,
That's called something I forgot. If you send if you're driving someone to a job, the girl gets the misdemeanor, and the person that's driving you gets the felony.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I remember that too, but it's principle that never came actually out.
And I got for a felony. It's like, so I couldn't talk to anybody in the business when I was on probation. Be careful.
Yeah. What'd you say, Bella?
I said I know of that statute, theoretically, but I've never actually seen it applied.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a driver get busted. More often than not, they write them up. This is back in New England. This is back in Massachusetts, New Hampshire. They would write up a criminal complaint, and they could, show up, and it was more of a formality than anything else. They weren't arrest you, or they didn't want to tow your car and make a big deal, and but
it depends on the mood. Let me say, when I got arrested,
to prove who was doing driving. That was that driver's girl or whatever. It's difficult. So,
right. Well,
I've never seen
because
that.
you know the mood. And let me tell you how they work it. And you know the mood of the car. They arrested the hotel clerk. They arrested the cab driver that took me to the hotel. And I'm like, the cab driver and the hotel clerk? And they said they took money from you. So they're guilty of pimping. They literally charged these two people with that. Then when there was no absolutely no. And my lawyer said, we're going to beat this. She's not doing anything wrong. They turned around to me, and I swear to God, you would not believe this. They produced a photograph of my mother handing me a bucket of KFC chicken, and me handing her a $20 bill. And they said, if you don't plea bargain, we will arrest your mother for pimping.
Yeah, they can.
And I'm like, $20 for a bucket of chicken? Are you kidding me?
Wow.
And they need to step.
I hope you put that to trial.
Absolutely. I mean, they can, and I've seen them do it. I have seen them do it to people's parents.
No, I hope you put the
Yeah, which was kind of fun. They did it to my parents.
Yeah.
That's
So,
crazy.
I mean, but that's what I mean about this kind of persecution is they've got a quota to fill. You know, the law is out to get you. They've got 36,000 beds to fill. And they have said that we are the easiest ones to lock up without a disadvantage.
He did the first
So it is
story
open
on it.
on us. And you've got to be better prepared.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
Very good point. I know another trick is like when you call a girlfriend for the job, you get the felony and your girlfriend gets the misdemeanor because you're the one that called your girlfriend.
Oh, I don't know if you heard about this shit, but cases like this, I've got women in here now that are being classified as sexual predators. And when I started first the calls, I'm like, you're joking me, right? And they're like, nope. They're like, I went on a call with a girlfriend, and because I was older than her, I'm now classified as a sexual predator.
Wow.
And I'm not kidding. I've now got members that I'm having to place into special housing, and they're labeled as sexual predators.
And don't you have to register as a sex offender?
Right?
Yes, and believe me, I'm fighting this because I'm saying, do you know how dangerous it is to put one of us out there on the internet saying this woman lives here and she's a sexual predator and she's a prostitute? I'm like, you know how dangerous that is?
Yeah.
And I am all over these people right now about this. I don't know why they're doing it or how to stop it, but I'm trying. Because you know the maniacs out there and the pimps. I mean, she was right here, you know?
Yeah.
That's endangered
Oh,
our
I
lives.
definitely knew my share of that attempt. I didn't do business with them, but I knew them. We all knew them.
Yep.
Yep. And they do
A lot of them are thieves.
sexual predators.
I mean, like literal. Yeah, those are the predators. They will find any weakness and exploit it to make you emotionally dependent.
So we've got to.
It's sick.
Another thing I wanted to warn people about is another thing I'm hearing about lately, and I do want to warn people about, is that they are being arrested and they're being told that they have priors. And the person's like, I don't have priors. And they're, no, I have priors. And they're wondering where these imaginary priors are coming from. And they're using these priors to push them, the law enforcement, into situations. And the priors are bogus. And most people don't have a clue how you would fight a bogus conviction. We know how to deal with it. And it's becoming very common.
Yeah, how do you prove that that's a bogus conviction if it's on your record?
Well, that's it. If it is a bogus conviction, there's a couple of ways. And one of the ways that you have to work carefully with an attorney and just people on this is that anytime you are arrested, there should be a booking videotape made of your arrest that proves it was actually you being booked. And if they can't produce that videotape, then there's a problem. You know, another thing is obviously when they log into the computer. But it's a whole big system process that you have to go through to get it actually taken off your record. But there are ways to do it. Most people don't even realize you can. But yes, you can fight these fake convictions. It's becoming very common right now.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. I can't tell you how many calls I'm getting going, hey, so I have tires, you know.
Wow.
Yep.
So you can not even ever gotten arrested before and you have a criminal list.
Can you imagine the shock of being told you have 2 priors, and then they're saying, well, this is your 3rd arrest, and you better blah, 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 and they're totally back from in the corner.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, again, all the more reason I feel like, you know, she wouldn't normally think of calling us because she's not really wanting to quit, but if she has a union rep she can call, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think we've got to get you guys much stronger out there, too.
Yeah, because we're here to help everybody and to protect everyone as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a damn thing.
People on the internet,
She's got priors she wasn't aware of.
cast a really wide web. I mean, it's just, you know, act locally, think globally.
Yep. Well, it's almost our cutoff time.
Okay.
So I want to say thank you very much, Jody. You've been such an insight and such a joy to have on the show. I cannot thank you enough for letting us talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
And
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work and your help, and thank you for everything.
I appreciate you guys. Yeah, I appreciate, see what I can do to help you guys in the future, too, and I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more.
Yeah, and we're going to help you as much as possible, too, and now we can just be a bigger team together.
Absolutely.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Bill.
Good night.
Good night, Felicia.
All right.
Good night, you guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.